Usually, the more expensive an item is, the more money people will invest to protect, store, or transport it. Every now and then, though, people throw caution to the wind and essentially say, hey, why can't I just send this big-ass diamond through the mail? Far from being an exaggeration, people have actually done just that, and in the video today, we're looking at 10 examples. Number 10. The guy who mailed sapphires. Sapphires are one of the most valuable precious gems, with a decent-sized one costing more than a new car. Like almost all precious gems, sapphires need to be mined and ripped from the earth, which is why they cost so much. However, in very rare cases, it's possible to find sapphires above ground in things like rivers. This is exactly what happened in 1895 to a gold prospector in Montana called Jake Hoover. Hoover had no idea about the value of the blue pebbles that he'd found while sluicing, and like many of the other gold prospectors, he'd been tempted to simply throw the pebbles away. Luckily, Hoover saw sense and decided to hold on to the curious pebbles until he'd collected a cigar box full of them, at which point he decided that he should probably get them appraised by an expert. Rather than personally accompanying the stones to an expert, Hoover was content sending the box to Tiffany & Co. via mail, at which point he learned that the stones other prospectors had been throwing away were sapphires worth hundreds of dollars a piece. Hoover ended up making far more money from sapphires than he ever did from gold, and he would have never figured it out unless he'd sent thousands of dollars worth of precious gems through the postal service. Speaking of, number 9. The guy who mailed the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is one of the single most valuable objects on the planet, with an estimated worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars. If supervillains were real, this is the very thing they'd be trying to steal on a weekly basis. Today, the diamond is safely housed in the Smithsonian, where it's presumably safe from any Mission Impossible-esque attempts to steal it. Even if that happens, though, it wouldn't be half as interesting as the story of how the diamond made it to the Smithsonian in the first place. A man called Harry Winston bought the diamond as part of a collection in 1949. After he'd spent a few years touring with the diamond to show off how awesome it was, someone managed to convince Winston that it would be a good idea to donate it for free to the Smithsonian. Rather than laughing in their face, Winston was swayed by this plea, and in 1958 he put the 45-carat diamond in a plain brown box and mailed it to the museum. This cost him the princely sum of $2.44. But Winston, he was no fool. He decided to insure the diamonds for the duration of the journey and paid an additional $142 to protect it against theft. The diamond was worth millions and was largely considered irreplaceable, so how the post office was able to insure it for just shy of $150 is beyond us. But hey, we still need to talk about number 8. The guy who mailed an even bigger diamond. Originally mined in 1905, the Cullinan diamond is one of the largest diamonds ever found in human history. For comparison's sake, the Hope diamond clocks in at 45 carats, while the Cullinan diamond, prior to it being cut into smaller and more manageable diamonds, weighed in at over 3,000 carats and had an estimated value of over $2 billion. The diamond was discovered in a South African mine by Sir Thomas Cullinan. As you could imagine, the question of how the authorities were going to safely transport it back to England became a rather pressing issue. It was eventually decided that the diamond would simply be mailed back to England in an insured brown box, because apparently multi-million-dollar diamond insurance is something that the Postal Service deals with all the time. However, to deter any potential thieves, a huge ceremony was arranged in which a fake package that didn't contain the real diamond was stored on an armored steamboat bound for England. Just let that thought settle in your head for a moment. There have been at least 2 times in recorded history where people have mailed million-dollar diamonds, and we currently live in an age where you can't mail a birthday card without someone worrying that someone will cut it open and steal the $5 inside. Number 7. The priceless Parmesan cheese buried in a garden. Compared to a diamond worth over $1 billion, Parmesan cheese may seem like a rather odd item, but a wheel of this famous Italian cheese will set you back thousands of dollars. Part of the reason it's so expensive is because the cheese is required by law to have matured for at least a year. So if a wheel costs several $1,000s today, imagine how much it would have cost in the 17th century when we didn't have an expansive network of delivery infrastructure to have it imported. According to historians, Parmesan cheese was so ridiculously expensive and rare back then that it wasn't uncommon for it to be considered a gift worthy of royalty, and simply having a small amount in your home was a huge status symbol. So imagine how diarist Samuel Pepys felt when the Great Fire of London began creeping up on his house when he had a huge block of Parmesan just sitting in his larder. Faced with the prospect of losing everything he owned and his cheese to the fire, Pepys quickly set about having the bulk of his belongings taken from his home by his servants, except for his cheese. Unable to trust another person with what was the equivalent of the keys to the Ferrari, Pepys was forced to bury the cheese in his back garden to ensure that it wouldn't be taken by either the flames or an unscrupulous looter. Number 6. Expensive wine stored under a tarp. With wine, a general rule of thumb is that the more expensive the bottle of wine is, the more care you have to take in storing it. Everything from the temperature to the angle you store the bottle at is taken into account, and it can all alter the taste of the wine in a multitude of different ways. So what's the biggest problem for wine? Well, that would actually be light. Luckily, there's one generally accepted way to store an expensive bottle of wine which protects it from light, and that's putting it in a cardboard box. We don't mean a specially made cardboard box crafted by monks or something. We mean that as long as you consider the other factors that affect taste, there's nothing wrong with even $100 bottles of wine being shoved in dusty old shoeboxes. Now, some sources suggest that even throwing an old tarp over a bunch of bottles is totally fine. So for all of the wine lovers reading this without access to a wine cellar, go buy a bunch of really good wine, wrap it in an old coat, and shove it in the back of your fridge. Problem solved. Number 5. The Mona Lisa was safe in someone's bedroom. The Mona Lisa is arguably the most iconic painting in human history. Even if you've never seen it in person, we bet 99% of the people reading this could describe it down to the fact that she doesn't really have any eyebrows. During World War II, the Louvre was forced to take drastic measures when it came to safeguarding the priceless exhibits that it housed. Fearing the Nazis would loot their stock, they sent the majority of their exhibits to various chateaux across France for safekeeping. While a lot of the art remained in the humble boxes and wrappings that they were delivered in until after the war, sympathetic art lovers couldn't bear the thought of allowing the freaking Mona Lisa to be covered up in such an undignified way. So, rather than trying to hide it, some simply hung the painting on their bedroom wall until it had to be moved again, safe in the knowledge that no one would ever actually believe that the painting was the real deal. Number 4. Solid gold is safe in the backyard. Few things are as timelessly valuable as gold. From the ancient kings of Egypt to survivalists prepping for a thermonuclear strike, gold is the one true currency. And it's the latter of those two that we're here to talk about today. If you've switched on a TV in the last few years, you may be aware that there's a small but dedicated group of people, mostly in the United States, who are absolutely certain that the economy is going to collapse any day. Though to the rest of us, those people seem, shall we say, misguided. To the gold industry, they're a metaphorical gold mine. What sets them apart from the regular folk buying gold as an investment is the fact that they're invariably anti-government and they don't trust banks either. This means that their options for storing their gold are limited to either hiding it in their house or burying it in the backyard. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of homes across the US hiding literal buried gold. So if you have a shovel and a neighbor who always rants about the government on Facebook, that may be something to keep in mind. Number 3. Bitcoins can be stored anywhere you don't have Wi-Fi. As you probably know, bitcoins are a digital cryptocurrency that you can use in lieu of real money if you don't like banks or want to buy drugs anonymously on the internet. Like any currency, the value of bitcoins is variable, and a large amount of money can be made with them if you're savvy and maybe just lucky enough. Because bitcoins are entirely digital, they're highly susceptible to being stolen. And because all bitcoin transactions are permanent and irreversible, if they are stolen, you're probably never getting them back. It's for this reason that people will often store their bitcoins under layers upon layers of digital security, but even then, it's not unheard of for people to have them stolen. The only real way to secure your bitcoins is to remove your hard drive and shove it in your sock drawer or something. If you really wanted, you could theoretically store billions of dollars worth of these things on a memory card in your vegetable crisper. However, just because bitcoins are safe from theft, it doesn't mean they're safe from you. There are plenty of stories of people who have lost or thrown away hard disks containing thousands of bitcoins. Number 2. Fancy cars left in driveways. For most people, cars are a tool that get us from A to B, but once you've spent a certain amount of money on a car, it goes beyond that and it becomes a part of who you are. Now, you'd think that people who own fancy cars would go out of their way to store them in secure garages, but if they're trying to sell a house, that's apparently the opposite of what they should be doing. According to experts, simply having a fancy car outside of a house adds thousands of dollars to its worth, even if it's parked in a less than desirable area. The theory is that once people see a nice car proudly parked outside a home, they automatically assume that the area they're in is nice, because surely it has to be if you're willing to park your snazzy car right outside. It's for this reason that there's a curious trend of people who are selling their homes going out and renting exotic cars just to park them outside. Even though a really nice car is more likely to be stolen there, it can add thousands of dollars of value to your property. Number 1. Winning lottery tickets are best stored on your person. We're guessing that almost everyone watching this has fantasized about what they'd do if they won the lottery. With that in mind, we'd like to ask you all another question. If you did win the lottery, where would you hide the winning ticket? Surprisingly, in a quiz of past lottery winners, one of the most common answers from women was in my bra. The most secure hiding place most women could think of was the same place they store their phones when they're on the toilet. Men, on the other hand, admitted to storing the ticket in either their wallet or their socks. However, our hats have to be tipped to the genius who decided to hide his winning lottery ticket in the garbage on the day that it was due to be collected. Amazingly, this didn't backfire, so let that be a lesson to you. If you ever have anything valuable to hide it in the garbage. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below. And don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. For more from me, why not check out my other channel called Today I Found Out. That is linked to below. And as always, thank you for watching.